A major warning was just issued by our federal government, by the head of the Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He just put out this memo warning everyone to check your license. All right, check your license to see if you are a quote organ donor, because this could have major implications, and there's major problems going on right now with this system. He is reporting that there are people, they're having their organs harvested while they're still alive. All right, this is very dangerous, the precedent that we are setting in this country with healthcare and how it's incentivized financially. All right, it's good in certain senses for innovation, but it's also very dangerous when people make money off of things like organ harvesting. So I want you guys to listen to this report really quick, and then we will show exactly this report from RFK Jr. and what's going on, the details here. But listen to this really quick. This is from Fox News. They reported on this yesterday of what's going on.
Growing concerns tonight about the safety and efficacy of the U.S. organ donation system. One government report details how these horror stories are coming out of disturbing practices. Now, the Health and Human Services Department is pledging reforms. Correspondent Mark Meredith looks at the situation tonight.
Federal officials say far too often organ donors are being prepped for post-death surgery while they may still be alive and have a chance to survive.
This can be fixed and the trust restored by making sure that people are performing adequate exams.
This week, the Health and Human Services Department told Congress these near misses are both disturbing and horrifying. The Trump administration recently reopening an investigation into one organ procurement organization, or OPO, serving Kentucky, Southwest Ohio, and parts of West Virginia. It reviewed 351 cases where donations were authorized but not completed, finding 73 patients were still showing neurological signs. 28 may not have been dead when the procedure started. Officials blaming the problem on poor assessments, lack of communication, and people not properly determining how someone died. Network for Hope, an OPO under review, says it's constantly adapting.
We are putting in multiple changes in our processes so that these kind of things do not reoccur, and we're still doing our investigation into those cases.
Congress says this issue is too important to ignore.
We need more people to donate. We need people to be donors.
Kentucky Congressman Brett Guthrie's mother died while waiting for a liver transplant. Now he's among many lawmakers calling for more transparency in the donation process, with more than 100,000 people currently waiting for a transplant.
The conclusion is going to come when we have confidence in the system.
Federal officials say while this problem is being looked at nationwide, the biggest vulnerabilities are occurring in smaller rural hospitals where they believe there are systematic gaps in oversight, Brett.
Mark, thanks.
All right, so you heard that there. Pretty insane stuff. They're saying that they think at least 28 people were still alive when they started organ harvesting, and I think they said 73 people still had neurological signs that they were still alive as well too, right? They weren't completely dead. It's not like they were just the heart stopped beating. There was still neurological activity going on with them, right? So there's a rush for some reason for this organ harvesting, and they're saying these certain states, specifically Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana right now are the biggest threats because this network here is being investigated. All right, I want you guys to look at these documents that were put out by the HHS too. You can see here that these documents were just released by the HHS. This is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services official website. It says HHS finds systematic disregard for sanctity of life in organ transplant system. All right, this is insane. And this is like one of these weird like conspiracy theory type things that I've been worried about honestly for a decade, right? I heard about this over a decade ago probably now, and I removed myself from the organ transplant list, all right? I felt kind of bad doing that at the time, but I was already hearing about that then, that there was sketchy things potentially going on with that, and certain places will rush you to get transplanted if you're on this list instead of trying to save you more, all right? They'll put more resources into that because it makes them more money, right? And I know that sounds bad, but that is what's actually going on in some places. It's sick, and you're playing with people's lives. You're killing people's family members to get their organs and sell their organs. It's barbarianism. It's totally the opposite of what our society should be about, right? You can see here it says our findings show that hospitals allowed the organ procurement process to begin when patients showed signs of life, and this is horrifying. This organ procurement organization that coordinates access to transplants will be held accountable. The entire system must be fixed to ensure that every potential donor's life is treated with sanctity it deserves. And this is going to create a backlash where people are not going to want to be a part of this, and it's going to create a scarcity of organs, and then they're going to want to do this even more, right? So they really stepped in it this time, and this is going on in a lot more places, guaranteed, than just these few states that were mentioned in this one organization. You can see here it says under Secretary Kennedy's leadership, HHS is restoring integrity and transparency to organ procurement and transplant policy by putting patient lives first. And this is the memo that they put out, right? They're saying that they're looking at this organization and it's under investigation right now, all right? So if you're in these states, especially Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, in this area, then definitely be a little bit on high alert. And I would honestly, in protest, remove myself from these donor lists until this is straightened out, right? And it's not fair to people that need the transplants, but it's also not fair to people that are losing family members from this, right? There needs to, I don't know, it makes sense because corruption leaks into honestly anywhere, right? Anywhere you have money being made or there's not as much oversight, there's going to be corruption leaking in. And it's just really sick that it has to happen like this, right? That people are rushing people to their death just to sell their organs. It's really scary. It's like third world country vibes, okay, where there's just not enough, resources to go around, so there's corruption and people are just being taken advantage of, right? And these hospital systems, they're kind of scary, okay? My wife was in the hospital for over 3 weeks, and they really do have a lot of power over you, over decision making, okay? There were multiple times where I had to be extremely firm that I have the power of attorney if anything ever happens to my wife, okay? Because they were trying to bypass that. Even though we already set that up, they were trying to bypass it and get my wife to sign all these forms, and they were very aggressive about it, where if my wife's unconscious or anything like this, then they can just go ahead and do whatever procedure they want to do, right? And we did not agree to that. We did not want that, and they were very aggressive in that, and we had to take a very firm stance to let them know that no, I need to be, consulted before any major medical decision is made, all right? And I will be available. I was staying right next to the hospital because you can't even stay in the hospital with kids, all right? So I was watching my kids staying right in the hospital, right in a hotel, right next to it in the same exact parking lot. And I was always available, and I was there all day anyways too. Only time I wasn't there was at night. But they're very pushy on these certain things, okay? Certain procedures that they want to do. And if this is one of the things that they want to do, if one of the doctors or somebody in the chain of command is making money from this somehow, right? So this needs investigated. These hospital systems that are working in coordination with this company here need investigated. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Let me try to look. What it's called, Network for Hope. All right, Network for Hope. That's what it's called. The organ donation company here in these few states. That's someone that's being investigated. So if you see anything to do with them, get far away. All right, get far away. And if you figure out, if you live in these areas too, find out what hospitals work with this company and maybe avoid them if possible. I know that's not always possible, especially in emergencies. Sometimes you have to go where you need to go. But the hospital system is becoming more and more profitized, and it's more about the bottom line. Like, they want to get you in and get you out and make their money and not really provide like bedside care and actual, personalized care for you. They want to do the procedure and get you out of there as soon as possible and make their money and build insurance. All right, that's what it's kind of boiled down to. And that's how we were treated in the hospital as well too. We were treated very badly. All right, terrible. There were a few doctors that were okay, but overall 75% of doctors and staff were terrible. Right? And sorry to say that, sorry to throw them under the bus, but they're extremely rude. They were disrespectful. They didn't respect our beliefs, our religious beliefs, and what we wanted to do with my wife. And they were always questioning us and our beliefs and what we wanted to do, right? In very disrespectful ways too, in very pushy ways that we did not agree with. And they do that with organ harvesting too, right? The whole thing is, I'm thankful for the doctors that were good there, right? There were a few that were actually really good that made up for it, okay? But avoid these hospitals at all cost, right? Avoid them, because sometimes they're not looking out for your best interests, some places, right? Sorry to say that, but that's how it is right now. And I remember one time I went to the hospital and ended up getting kicked out of my room, right? Got an MRI, got kicked out of my room, and then waited in the hallway for a couple hours to see the doctor in the hallway. It was insane. To clear me to go home and everything. And then they charged me almost $14,000. Absolutely insane what's going on in the medical system. My wife's bills and our daughter's bills from the NICU are absolutely insane. My daughter's was over $100,000 just for 3 days, and my wife's, I don't even know the full amount yet. All right, we keep getting bills sent in chunks for certain days and certain lab work and things like that. It's all split up, so I don't even know the total amount, but it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? It's definitely over $500,000 because she was there for 3 weeks, right? It's just insane, like that. And my daughter was over $100,000 for 3 days. It's just it's insane. The medical system right now, it's totally broken. And this is just like one symptom of it. This organ harvesting cases that we see here. And it's sick, right? This is happening on multiple levels where they're selling stem cells, okay? Remember all these doctors that got caught a few years ago selling organs from even babies, okay? So there's a lot of twisted, sick stuff going on. And I hate to say this because there are good doctors, right? There were some good doctors that were as good as gold there, and I'm extremely thankful for them. But some of them, I'm sorry to say this, were literally psychopaths. Psychopaths or sociopaths. And that's why they're doctors, right? Because they're immune to all these things, and they're really numb to it and not personalized to it at all. It's very medicalized to them and industrialized, and it's just all business to them, and it's not personal to them. They don't care that there's, family members and children and women that could die and did die. They don't care about things like that. It's all business, all right? It's all keep things going and check all the boxes and do what we say. Okay, so I'm sorry to go in on doctors like this in the medical system, but it's true. Some of them are literally psychopathic. Some of them were trying to hurt our family, hurt my wife, hurt our baby, And they did. They did. They won. They succeeded. They hurt our family. They hurt our children. And that was their goal and intention, right? I don't want to get too deep in this because there's stuff going on behind the scenes potentially with all this, all right? There was a lot of mistakes that were made, and we're looking into all this stuff when my wife was in the hospital, right? So that's my rant here, my personal rant, but I'm think of all these people, dozens of people that they just know of, right? They're actually saying Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia, right? I might have been saying Indiana because it's right over there too, but they're saying West Virginia mostly. So Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia are actually the main parts that they are investigating right now. But I would bet money that this is happening, or has happened at least, in every single state in the country. All right, people getting kickbacks and people getting money for this. So this is your wake-up call. This was a wake-up call for me. I'm like, this is, I try to stay relatively healthy, but I'm like, I need to get a lot more healthy to make sure I don't end up in any situation where I have to be in the hospital and you're dealing with something along these lines where they're deciding whether to keep you alive or not. And this is another thing too. It's so important to have like a family member or a close friend, if any emergency ever happens to you, that you can get in contact with right away, or authorities can contact right away, right, to help make decisions for you. And I know that's harder said than done, because sometimes these things move quick and they're not going to contact people, but finding out a way to make sure they contact this person that you want them to talk to help make decisions, because they could just decide, oh, you're brain dead, or you're gonna be brain dead, or your heart's about to give out. You're not actually dead yet, so they're gonna just pull the plug and harvest your organs while they're still fresh and viable. Okay, that's probably the framework that they're working on here as well. This person's right on the edge of death, but they're not actually dead yet. So let's just get the organs out of here so we can help someone else and have the freshest, most viable organs that are going to actually work. All right, that's probably the thinking that they're thinking here, but it's borderline like psychopathic. Okay, there's a person here that's already alive. The person waiting for a transplant is gonna have to wait for somebody else to die. You can't kill someone to save someone else, right? That just doesn't make sense, at least in my mind, at least in my worldview. Killing someone to save someone else, doesn't really make sense. Okay, so let me know what you guys think down below. I know I'm ranting here. This is just insane, and I'm telling you, this is something that I heard about a decade ago, and I changed it off my license, the organ donor thing, because I remember it was on my license, one of the first licenses I got, and I was like, oh cool, it has like a little heart next to it, organ donor, right? But then I was like, wait a minute, this is kind of sketchy. I heard the theories going around. I was like, this is a little bit weird. Like, that kind of does make sense. Yeah, they probably would do that. And then 10 years later, confirmed, they're doing it. All right, another strike right again on a lot of these things. All right, they're actually happening, but it takes a decade plus for it to actually be, quote, confirmed, right, by the experts or by the government or by the authorities. Okay, so look into your state. All right, there's a state registry and there's also a federal registry for this. So look into your state registry if you want to change this and remove your name off the list, and then look into the federal organ donor registry as well too, see if you're on that, and try to remove yourself from that list too if you want to. Okay, I'm not saying everyone has to panic and do it, but you need to think about it and consider it. You should have consent, and maybe even in a sense of protest that, this needs to stop, right? They need to stop killing people to harvest their organs. And they're most likely being conservative with these numbers too. These are probably just confirmed cases where they have medical documentation and people made complaints, things like that. There's probably a lot more cases that nobody ever heard of just somebody that didn't have any family or friends, and they just got rid of them early, harvested their organs, and nobody even knew what happened, really. Okay, some homeless person, some person down on their luck, some person traveling in a different state, somebody from out of the country. All these things, I'm sure this is happening quite a bit more often too than we even know about for people that are just kind of, off the grid more and don't really have any family or connections that would be looking for them or be looking for answers of what's actually going on. And a lot of times too, the family won't even look for answers. They'll just accept it and say, okay, they died this way, this is what they said. Even if there was some type of malpractice, no one will ever know. Okay, so there's definitely a lot more cases than they're reporting, but I'm sure they're only reporting cases where they have evidence for it. So thank you guys. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared out there. Hope you have big blessings for your life, your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.